Recently, I reviewed Affinity Photo for the iPad, and I was impressed by its desktop-class feature set and snappy performance. So I was eager to try out the Mac version to see whether it could match the good experience I've had with the iPad. I've been using it extensively for over a month as my main photo editor. So in today's video, I'd like to talk about the 10 most useful features of Affinity Photo for the Mac, and as usual, I'll be demoing each feature I describe. Before I begin, let me talk about the price. Affinity Photo for the Mac costs around $50 USD. However, at the time of this writing, you can get it at 50% off. That's a big price difference compared to Lightroom's $10 USD a month subscription and rental model. Kudos to Serif for letting people actually own the software and still give a big discount. So let's get right into the 10 most useful features. Number 1. Adjustment Layers. Affinity Photo Adjustment Layers allows for non-destructive editing, which doesn't permanently change the underlying photo. Similar to Photoshop, areas of an adjustment layer can be hidden by painting black over the layer. This allows for localized adjustments, as we shall see in a moment. So here we have a photo which is underexposed. I do want to brighten up this image, but if I apply a brighten adjustment throughout the entire image, then these nice lanterns will actually be overexposed. What I'm going to do here is use adjustment layers so that I have more targeted control over the parts which I want to adjust. So for that, you could go into layer, new adjustment layer, and I'm just going to select the brightness control just to brighten it up a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to add here a shadows adjustment. You can see that as I add a new adjustment, a new layer is actually created. So all of this is non-destructive. So that's really nice. So pretty much every adjustment you do in Affinity Photo is non-destructive. And then I'm just going to add as well an exposure adjustment here just to make the effect a little bit stronger. Yeah. Okay, so it looks now nice and bright, but the lanterns are now overexposed. Okay. So what I'm going to do is just use the paint brush and choose a brush size and just paint over the lanterns here. So as you paint black over the lanterns, you're actually masking the effect. So basically you're removing the effect of the brightness adjustment on the lanterns. So this works similar to Photoshop, but Affinity Photo has this built in as well. So there, so I'm just painting over it so just to bring back the color from the lanterns. Okay, so of course you can control the strength of the mask based on how dark the mask is, and a mask which is black will mask out the adjustment. Yeah, so just gonna paint over that. So you can see that some of the color is now there. So I'm just gonna select the shadows layer now. So you have to select the layer and then just paint over it again to remove the effect of the shadow adjustment on the lanterns. So there, so you can see now it's becoming a little bit more balanced. So you can see how nicely now the colors pop for both the lanterns and the foreground. Okay, so now I can also apply I can apply a white balance adjustment as well, and you see another layer will show up. I just want to make it less warm, so the blue of the sky will come out a little bit more. And so there's before and after. Before and after. Number 2. Refined selections. Similar to adjustment layers, selections also allow local adjustments to be made on an image. Affinity Photo has a wide variety of selection tools, but I'll demonstrate the most handy, which is the selection brush tool. To demonstrate selections, we're going to blur the background and give it that bokeh effect, and that'll give us a chance to demonstrate some of Affinity Photo's selection tools. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is use the selection brush, which is the easiest tool to use. Okay, so you can click add here to add the selection, and that's what I'm going to do. So you just basically drag over the part of the image which you want to select, and Affinity Photo will use its algorithms to detect edges. It will find out what your intentions are and usually do a good job. So you can see I can zoom in on the photo, adjust the brush size by selecting the brackets, so you can make it smaller or bigger. Now certain parts of this image, like the hair, will be difficult to select manually, and later we're going to see Affinity Photo's refined selection tool, which allows you to do good selections on hair and fur and all of that stuff. Okay, so we're clicking the refined selection tool button, and basically all you need to do is drag over the parts of the image, like in this case the hair strands, where you want Affinity to refine, or to use its algorithms to figure out which parts need to be selected. And what we're going to do here is we're going to reverse the selection so that we can select the background, and then we're going to apply a blur filter. And there you go. And of course you can adjust the strength of this blur filter, so you now have that nice bokeh effect. Okay, so that's just one example of the selection brush tool, before and after. Pretty good. Number 3, full raw editing. While most photo editors on the Mac do support raw editing, Affinity Photo stands out with its comprehensive set of controls. Not only do you have standard sliders for brightness, contrast, shadows, and white balance, but also you have the option to adjust clarity, lens distortion, and noise. Okay, so to demonstrate raw editing in Affinity Photo, we have this photo right here. It's underexposed, but because it's a raw file taken with my A7S, I expect that a lot of detail will be available. So I'm clicking the basic panel here where all the standard controls are. So I'm just gonna adjust the brightness, so that then I'm going to adjust the shadows here. Just brighten up the shadows. And you can see how much information is brought out. See, because it's a raw file. Okay, so I'm just gonna adjust the color here. It's a little bit too warm, and bring out the blue in the sky again. What I'm gonna do here is just adjust the distortion as well. That's another nice thing about Affinity Photo's raw editing. You can actually adjust lens distortion. So that's the before, and there's the after. Number 4, remove objects and imperfections. Affinity Photo has a suite of tools to remove distracting objects and imperfections in a photo. Okay, so here I have an image which shows an outdoor eating area in Japan. However, what I don't like is all these wires in the background. I wish that they could be removed. The nice thing about Affinity Photo is that it has very good removal tools. So basically what you want to do is click the in-painting brush tool. Okay, so the in-painting brush tool is the easiest tool to use. You basically just brush over the object and make the object disappear. So this is similar to other tools in competing photo editors, but it works just as well in Affinity Photo. I'm gonna skip over certain parts because the background is a little bit more complicated. And so for that, I'm gonna use the healing brush tool. So basically this one worked like a clone and stamp. So you just clone the background, and you can sort of specify the background that you want to replace the object with. So you can just use the keyboard command Option click, just like other photo editors. Just use Option click to select the background, and then just sort of paste over it. So there. So you can see it works really well. Yeah. So that looks fine. Number 5, effective noise reduction. If you ever shot in low light, you know how much noise can ruin a photo. So if that's a frequent problem, I can't recommend Affinity Photo highly enough, as its noise reduction is really best in class. Let's demonstrate noise reduction in Affinity Photo with this particular image. So this particular image was taken with very little light, and so it's extremely noisy. Even at this distance, without it being zoomed that much, you can already see all the color noise and luminance noise in this image. So it's taken at a very high ISO, and I've brightened it up, but the noise now becomes very visible. So Affinity Photo has really good noise reduction tool, which I'm going to demonstrate now. Okay, so you can use this live filter here. Okay, so new live filter, and then just click on noise, and then denoise here, and there you go. You will see that it is a layer which is created, so this is non-destructive. Okay, so what I'm gonna do here, so you see the noise panel shows up, and I'm just gonna drag the color noise slider way up there to get rid of it. And you can see now that the color noise is removed. That's really ugly. That's even worse than the luminance noise. Okay, so now it looks a lot cleaner. And luminance noise, you don't want to overdo it because you don't want the image to become soft. So you have the before and the after. Before and after. Number 6, lens and perspective correction. If you shoot with wide-angle lenses, you may have noticed situations where a lens produces curved lines where straight lines should be, or you might see a tapering effect because of the position of the subject relative to the camera. So to demonstrate distortion correction, we have this image here, and you can see that it has that pyramiding effect, the tapering effect because of that wide-angle lens, and we're going to try to remove that with Affinity Photo's distortion correction tools. I believe it's the live filter layer. Okay, yeah, live filter, and then distort, and then lens distortion. Okay, so we can make some corrections there on lens distortion. So this is manually correcting it. So it works pretty well. So let's apply another live filter. You can see a new layer is created as well for each of these. So it's all non-destructive. So in this case, we're going to use the perspective correction here. So in this case, it has a bunch of handles which you adjust to remove that tapering effect. Because you're too near, you basically have a wide angle lens which is too near the subject, and that's why it has the tapering effect. And sometimes you want to remove that. Sometimes you want to keep it, sometimes you want to remove it. Okay, so you can see the speed at which Affinity Photo renders this type of transforms. So it's very impressive. It was impressive to me when I was using it with the iPad, but now with the Mac, it's still just as good. So I guess you need a little bit of trial and error to get this to look proper. Okay, so this one makes it look a little bit more upright, moving this bottom handle here, which is good. And so I think that's looking a lot better, and so we can crop it now with the crop tool. Let's go ahead and do that. There you go. Okay, so let's compare it now. So that's the before and the after. A huge difference. Before and after. Okay, so let's look at another example here wherein we're going to use the lens distortion tools available to Affinity Photo. So you can, it's actually right at the lens tab here on the right side. Affinity Photo has a sort of a lens tab which fixes lens distortions. So you can see here, this is the interface, and you have automatic lens correction by simply checking the checkbox. And you can see a whole list of lenses that's in its database. So with all the characteristics, by simply clicking the lens, it will apply the distortion correction automatically, or the lens correction automatically. And so this is really important because a lot of the distortion corrections are not done in RAW. So you have to do that in post. So you need a software which actually supports this. So that's one thing. So you can apply the automatic correction. But right now, I'm going to do it as well manually. I can actually apply more corrections by moving the distortion slider here to remove the barrel distortion. And I can try to make this less tapered by adjusting this vertical distortion slider to make it more upright, just like the previous image. And horizontal here doesn't seem to be applicable for this image, so I'm not going to really use it. Rotation here, rotate it a little bit, and then I'm just going to scale it to remove all the whites from the corrections. Yeah, so it's now looking more upright, which is what we wanted. And so just apply a little bit more rotation here. Yeah, and so it's looking good. And so let's compare it. Before and after. Number 7, HDR. Just like Lightroom, Affinity Photo also supports high dynamic range photography. Affinity Photo's implementation is simple to use, processes quickly, and produces natural looking results. And so you can see that I have the 3 photos now available. So just select all these 3. Okay, so just select it, click open, and there you go. right? And then it will basically try to merge them together. You can do an HDR merge, but that's not really complete because you can do a bit more adjustments to this. Okay, so this is the merged image. So once you do the HDR merge, it will bring you to this tone persona panel, which allows you to do further editing on the HDR image. Okay, so they call this the tone persona. So it has some presets on the left side, but I actually like to adjust the local contrast here, which is something like a clarity slider, but this is the local contrast. You can see as I drag through it, you can see it brings out all the details because each of these images, each of these exposures have detail in them, and basically you bring all this detail together in that one image, and you can see that it makes really that image pop. So of course you can adjust other things like highlight, shadows, and the like, but my favorite really is that local contrast slider. You can adjust also the tone compression, so you can also try some of the presets here, which also look pretty good. So you see that HDR images in Affinity Photo are very natural looking, and they don't have any issues of image alignment and the like, which I got from the iPad version. So it is a really nice interface for fixing up your HDR. You have the overexposed, normally exposed, then you have the underexposed image, and here is the HDR version. So you see what a big difference.
Number 8. Clarity Adjustment. If you've used Lightroom, you know that clarity adjustment is an essential tool that's used to add contrast in the midtones, enhance sharpness and detail to help make images pop. While it's surprising that many photo editors do not have a clarity tool, Affinity Photo has a well-implemented version that's present throughout its app.
Okay, so to demonstrate clarity, let's use this photo here. It's a bit bland photo. I think it could use a little bit more definition in the clouds. So it's simple enough to do that. You just basically apply, go into, again, a live filter and just apply clarity. Simple as that. So you can see now the detail in the clouds show up. Okay, so here's another example. Again, the clouds could use a little bit more definition, so I'm going to apply the clarity adjustment. Again, we could make this non-destructive with this live filter. And we can just move the slider up and you can see all the detail in the clouds coming out. It makes the image really pop, okay? So before and after, and that's the clarity slider.
Number 9. HSL Adjustment. The ability to adjust the color of an image has been a staple of Lightroom. I'm happy to note that Affinity Photo gives you a similar capability and even allows you to pick a color of the image to adjust the HSL on.
Okay, so to demonstrate HSL adjustment, we're going to use this image here. So this image is taken with an iPhone. The colors don't seem to match what I saw at the scene, and it looks a little bit flat. So what I like to do with photo editors is use HSL to adjust the saturation of certain colors to give it the look that I want. And so you can do that as well with Affinity Photo. So let me demonstrate that. So here I'm just going to go into new adjustment layer and HSL there. So what you can do here is you can select any of the colors here. Okay, so here you can see that as I select orange here, it looks like it works fine, or yellow, it works fine. For the blues, so you can use a picker as well here. So here I'm going to be selecting the blues. Okay, so you can use the picker to select the color that you want to enhance. So that's pretty good. So it looks looking a lot better here. So for red, I'm going to replace that red here with something I choose from the picker. Okay, and so you can see that you can make those adjustments as well. So you have the before and the after.
Number 10. Vectors and Text. Unlike Lightroom, Affinity Photo goes beyond just retouching images. You also have Photoshop features which allow you to create vector graphics with its shape and text tool.
Okay, so let's look at some of the vector capabilities of Affinity Photo. Affinity Photo goes beyond what Lightroom offers in that it does Photoshop related, in that it has Photoshop related features like vectors and text, which is super useful if you're creating banners or icons and the like. And as I've said, I've used this quite a bit. So here you can just go to the shape tool and just select whatever shape. In this case, it's a rounded rectangle. So let's say here I'm just creating some icon, like a camera icon in this situation. Okay, so as you can see, you can size it in any way that you want. You can position it. You can position it in any way that you want. You can adjust the fill color here. So you can adjust the fill color. There you go. Okay, using that color picker here, so it's straightforward. Okay, so let's add another shape here to make it look like a camera. So of course, this doesn't have the same number of features as a dedicated vector program like Photoshop, but it does a lot, as you're gonna see. Okay, so now we're going to add, so we're just gonna add a circle here. So it gives us a chance to demonstrate how to place strokes into this photo. So let me just move this around first. So you can just adjust the stroke here. You can look at the size of the stroke. Okay, let's just make the stroke a little bit thicker. You can adjust the width very easily. So I like to do that a lot, and it's so easy with Affinity Photo. And now I can change the color as well here. And just to demonstrate it further, let's just add a bit of text with the text tool, just to show how versatile Affinity Photo is. Okay, of course you can change, you can transform any of these things here because it's a vector. You can change the fonts here, size it. It's super easy to do. So here I'm just gonna change the font. So you see that I like the layout of the fonts. It shows more of these fonts in one window like this. It's much faster to choose a font. So I think we can make this font, this text a little bit bigger. Yep, and there you go.
So there you have it, 10 of the most useful features of Affinity Photo for the Mac. Now, no photo editor is perfect, and Affinity Photo does have some flaws which I hope they'll improve in a future release. I rely on HSL adjustments to enhance the look of my images. Affinity Photo's implementation to me isn't as robust as Lightroom's or their other competitors. For example, when I select a color, say red, it seems to me that not all the reds are properly targeted or properly adjusted. My personal view is they should just copy the Lightroom behavior because I think that works better. Second, I would like to suggest improvements on the interface. So certain commonly used things like comparing an edited image with the original image. For Affinity Photo, I have to go to history and actually use the slider to move back to the very first image. Other photo editors have some eye tool or some button that you press to compare before and after. So if they can reduce some of these commonly used steps, that will be very helpful in making a photo editor even easier to use. Those criticisms aside, I believe for the amount of features, performance, and price you are paying, Affinity Photo for the Mac is an amazing value. It has pretty much every important Lightroom and Photoshop feature and at a fraction of the price. I highly recommend it for anyone looking to use it as a primary photo editor. But what do you think? Do you agree with this list? Do you agree that Affinity Photo is suitable as a primary photo editor? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching. Until the next video, bye!